All right, Parashat Devarim, Sefer Devarim. Sefer Devarim in his entirety was said at the gate of the land of Israel, which is the gate, the door for the Jewish homeland. The land of Israel is a Jewish homeland. I don't care what anybody says. They can jump if they think otherwise than that. So, our sages tells us that a Jewish home, a Jewish home is like Beit HaMikdash. Guys, pay attention, it's very important. And every house has an opening. And based on what is happening at the opening, the characteristic and the nature of whatever is in the house is being determined. That's why at the opening you need to have shmirah, you need to have some kind of guardian and a declaration of the way in which this house is being run. As much as a person, or the way a person starts, that's most likely how he's going to continue the rest of his life. To change, Rabotai, is a very difficult thing to do. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves Baalei Tshuva very much, because they throw everything behind and they change the whole entire life. That's a tremendous ma'alah for a Baal Tshuva, or a convert, or Ger Tzedek, a person who keeps all the mitzvot. HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves them very much because they were able to throw, and that's so difficult to do. You don't know how difficult it is? Think about the last time you want to keep a diet or to make a great change in your life. So Baal Tshuva is something amazing. So therefore, and the rest of your life, therefore, is going to be directed and would conduct itself based on that initial statement or initial movement or foundation in which you establish to yourself the rest of your life. That's why, Rabotai, it's very important for you to understand that, especially before you get married, right? Who are you going to get married to? Who are you going to get married to? Are you sharing the same thing? Is this person, the Torah is his number one focal point of your life, of their life? If not, and if you haven't addressed that, and you haven't clarified it, you should know that you are heading yourself into a pit. It is into the rabbit hole, and you don't know how far it is until you hit down rock bottom. It has to be very clear from the very beginning, and it goes through everything. There are stages that a person in his life goes through, those doors, those hallways. So one of them is when he becomes mature, 13. So we give him mitzvot, we give him tefillin, we teach him to read the Torah. It's not just symbolic. We said to him, Habibi, you can read the Torah now, it's yours. Then there is the stage of getting married. It's another door that you're walking into. What are you going to establish this married life of? By the way, this is to whom? Refuah Shlema of?
Avner ben Hefzi.
Avner ben Hefzi. Refuah Shlema, Avner ben Hefzi. Also should be Le'avdi Le'ilui Nishmat Bechor ben Penir and Reuven Leib ben Chana. And to the Hatzlacha of our agents out there, codename Karen, codename Mike, and George and Shlomo. May the Schwartz be with them. Now, that's one stage. And those stages will determine what your kids would be. What would you do the rest of your life? And all of a sudden, just remember that we reach the age of 50, and that's usually when you have your crisis, and I'll show you why. God willing, I'll show you why. Avner, take it easy. So now, so that's why we put a mezuzah to guard our houses, and the mezuzah, it says Shem Shakai, right? Shin Dalet Yud, Shomer Dlatot Israel. He who guards the doors of Israel. Of course, you see that when we stand at the door, whether we're going in or we're going out, we have to remind ourselves all the time the unification of Hashem, that is one. So your actions at home should be like your actions in the street, and vice versa. It shouldn't be, a German in the street and a Jew at home. Your actions should be solid. So as much as there is a private opening or private entry, there is a general entry as well. As when Am Yisrael is standing at the borders of the land of Israel. By the way, I would recommend to all of you to look at the League of Nations and the Declaration of the League of Nations for the Jewish right for their homeland, and you'll be surprised. It's something you should be reminded all the time. So I do encourage you to do that. So when they are standing at the east side of the Jordan, that according to the League of Nations is supposed to be a part of the Jewish homeland, they are at the opening at the entrance to the land, and over there at that place, that's when Balak and Bilam tried to stumble them. And over there also was the land of Sichon and Og, two nations that are in a way a representative of, everything in this world has a parallel side to it. Everything positive has an equal side negative. So there were the mezuzah of the other side, right? As much as there is a mezuzah that guards the house, there is a quote-unquote mezuzah of the sitra achara, of the evil side, that tried to connect the person to it and guards from it, that he would not awaken to do avodat Hashem, that would not be spiritual. That it prevents it from becoming more spiritual, to seek spirituality, to keep being materialistic, and so on and so forth. Says the Netivot Shalom, which I love very much, says Sichon ve'Og, those two nations of Sichon and Og, were the most difficult klipot, the most difficult husks out there, and they sat at the openings on the entry to Eretz Israel and would not allow the Jews to go through it. You should look at the Netivot Shalom inside of it. As much as the klipa of the lev, the husk around the heart, holds our heart and prevents us to be awakened, to really shake our heart up and to listen to the words of Chachamim, to listen to the words of Torah, to listen to the voice of your own neshama. The neshama sits in the heart, but there is a dome around it that prevents from the voice of the neshama vibrating up into your whole being. So it's being closed. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I would circumcise the foreskins of your heart that covers asiret orlat libchem, that covers your neshama from bursting out and really becoming spiritual. And it's really amazing. If you know that, you'll see what we are talking about all the time. So the same thing, Og and Sichon guarded Am Yisrael from entering Eretz Israel in order to prevent, Rabotai again, like is happening today, to prevent the connection of Am Yisrael and his homeland. Same thing. And also from a materialistic point of view, from a physical point of view, they protected the 7 nations that settled in the land, right? And that's the Midrash Rabbah, Perek Yutet says that, and they guarded them. Now those 7 nations represent the 7 klipot that prevent us to be connected to the light. Corresponding with the 7 klipot of Ze'er Anpin, there are the 7 klipot of the other side. These are the nations, the 7 nations that protect that. That's why, because that's the reason that before Moshe Rabbeinu starts with Ve'ele Advarim, right? He first of all before he says those words, he needs to go to a war and he beats up Sichon ve'Og, and he in a way opens a channel to Am Yisrael, which is basically the channel for Kedusha, for holiness, to the land of Israel. That's why it's very important to understand that we must act in a holy way in Israel, in the land of Israel. And if you are not willing to commit yourself to life of Torah in Eretz Israel, you should think very quickly and very thoroughly why in the world you're going there, because you know that if you don't, the land would vomit you out of there, would eject you out. So that's the way it works. Listen, you have problems with this, go to God and then explain to him what your problem is. But that's what the Torah says to us. So before we're going to get to the whole issue of the tochacha, the rebuke and the Moshe Rabbeinu gives Am Yisrael, that seems in a way a little bit weird and bizarre. I mean, in a way, it looks like Moshe Rabbeinu is trying to settle down a feud between him and the people, and with kind of a bitterness or something like this. So we need to understand that it seems in a way like that, right? But of course it's not. We need to understand that. So we need to understand, before we're going to do that, the importance of entering Eretz Israel. It says in Bereshit, V'nahar yotzeh mi'Eden, and a river comes out from Eden, lehashkot et hagan, to irrigate the garden. Umisham, and from there, yipared, it will separate, v'haya le'arba'a rashim, and it will come to 4 different heads. Minahar yotzim arba ne'arot, right? There are 4 of them. Harevi'i, the 4th one, it counts, and the 4th one is Nehar Prat. The Zohar speaks about these 4 rivers as 4 different levels that we have in the Pardes. Can you put this on? The Pardes that we have in 4 different ways to deal or to analyze the Torah, which is Pshat, Remes, Drush, and Sod. And according to the Zohar, Nehar Prat represent to Sod, secret, the mystical aspect of the Torah itself, the mystical aspect of the Torah itself, the internal aspects of the Torah, and it's called Prat because it's Poreh. Poreh means being very, how should I say it, fertile. And it always gives fruit, and it always, it's not a seasonal thing. It always gives fruit, and that is the true benefit, the true fruit of the Torah itself. And this is the internal intellect of the Torah itself. So there are ways of learning. There are ways of learning pshat, the simple things. There are the ways of learning remez, which is the hint, and drush, in which we have to go over and over. However, those parts, comparing with the sod, is considered to be to the part of the klipa. The sod is the inside, and the other one are the outer husk. In a way, remember we spoke today about walnuts, right? Mm-hmm. So the walnut tree gives fruit. So outside there's a green husk. After you break the husk, there's another layer. There's the inner green, and then there is the husk of the thing itself, and then inside you have the walnut inside. So in a way, the walnut is like the Torah. So the fruit is inside of it. So the real fruit of the Torah is basically the sod. That gives you able to understand things on a totally different level. So Eretz Israel, in which Am Yisrael is about to go into, is not a land that goes by, that is meant for the pshat of things, to just like, all right, it is what it is, kind of a thing. That's why I don't necessarily like the term, it is what it is. It is what it is accepting, okay, then malasot, that's pashut, no. So we need, in Eretz Israel, we need pnimiyut, we need internal aspects to give us depth. That's the way we do it. Because everything has an internal side to it and an external side to it, and so are in the lands. And Eretz Israel is the pnimiyut, is the heart, and the rest of the lens is the husks inside. The fruit is Eretz Israel, and that's why the Mishnah now, we have to understand that we said the Mishnah says that Eretz Israel is the center of the world. It's not really in the center, it's like, 33 something, but it's 30 I think Israel is. So it's not really in the center. However, it's the center of being. By the way, that's why whoever controls Israel could control the world. And that's why they always fight on Israel. And if you control the Temple Mount, you can control Israel, which you can control the world. And now you understand why the Crusades fought over the Temple Mount, why the Muslims always wanted the Temple Mount. And that's why God gave us the Temple Mount, but we gave it to us for a reason. And believe me, that we'll try to reach for it today. So, and the same thing, Am Israel is the Pnimiyut, and the rest of the nation is the Chitzoniyut. Am Israel is the internal part, and the rest of the nation are the external part. By the way, you need both parts. I'm not saying one is more important, but you need both parts. So when Am Israel is fulfilling the role of internalism, so therefore he could enter Eretz Israel that is internal. So that's a part that goes inside the part, and that's perfect, that fits. And therefore he needs to go, Am Israel, not only b'derech HaTorah, also needs to go through the deeper meaning of the Torah, into the pnimiyut of the Torah. That's why in the words of Moshe Rabbeinu, when he starts talking, he says the following, Hashem Elokeinu diber elenu bechorev. God had spoken to us on Mount Sinai. Lemor, to say, Rav lachem shevet bahar hazeh. You've been sitting here for too long. Pnu us'u lachem. Get up and start going. Ubo hara emori. And then you should reach the mountains or the dwelling places of the Amorites. And then it says, what is it? Ve'el kol shchenav, and all his neighbors, ba'arava, in the plateau, in Bahar, in the mountains, in the coastal area, and in the Negev, and so on and so forth. Eretz HaKna'ani ve'ha-Lebanon, the land of the Canaanites and Lebanon, ad hanahar agadol nehar Prat, until the great river, the river Prat, which again, Prat, we say represented the Torah, so it should spread all over. Moshe shows us the way how to enter from the chitzoniyut, from the external part, to the pnimiyut of the Torah. It says, don't sit in this mountain. Don't just settle down in here, as they did in Har Sinai, because Chorev represents the pshat of the Torah, and that's in a way the so-called the klippah in this place. And it says, get out and go through all the stages. Go through all the stages that we say. And what are the stages? Ha-Emori, Ha-Negev, and so on and so forth, until you reach the Nehar Prat, which represents the sword of the Torah, which is the Pnimiyut. Only by doing so, you'll be able to settle down in Eretz Israel. Now, I'm going to tell you something. If for whatever reason, people cannot learn Torah in Eretz Israel, there would not be an existence to the state of Israel as well. And when the state of Israel starts to mess up with people who learn Torah, it means bad news for the land, or bad news for the people sitting down in the land. I'm just going to tell you that. This is not a threat, that's a fact. Look at history, even our short-term history. Every time they try to do something with the religious people to prevent them from learning, you have to go to the army, you have to go to this, you have to do that, something happens. All the time. All the time. So it says in the Svarim that there are 50 different gates of holiness, and of course there are also 50 gates of impurity, but 50 gates of holiness. And it says that all of them were given to Moshe Rabbeinu besides one, right? That's why it says "V'tachsereu me'at me'elokim." That's in Tehillim, Perek
Yudbet,
Chet, Pasuk,
Gimel,
Vav. So the highest level of divine revelation is the 50th gate, Sha'ar HaChamishim, which represent, of course, with the Sphira of Bina, and the Shem Elokim represents that Sphira of Bina, and Moshe Rabbeinu was able to reach this gate, the 50th gate, like minutes before his death. That's why it says that he died on Har. Where did Moshe Rabbeinu die? Come on, buzzards. Har Nevo. Moshe Rabbeinu died on Har Nevo. Har Nevo, the letters of Har Nevo Nun Bet Vav is Nun Bo. 50 in him. In other words, it means that at that moment when he died, he was able to reach the 50th gate. Nevo, that's why it's called Nevo. So they say in the Kabbalah that the number 50 is not just another number after 49. Number 50 is a brand new reality, is a brand new existence altogether. And now remember what we talked about, the midlife crisis when most people reach 50, all of a sudden, because all the time you went from one stage to another, one stage to another, one stage to another. All of a sudden you're reaching 50 and you're saying, holy mackerel, I've been doing things wrong. Of course, most of us don't have the power to change it, and therefore we buy ourselves a new car. We buy yourself, I don't know, if you don't have so many means, you're going to buy yourself a Miata, and then if you have more means, you're going to buy yourself a red Corvette. You know, leave Freud to the side, please. But that's what it is. All of a sudden, when you reach 50, you go 49 years, you're telling yourself stories. You reach 50, all of a sudden you realize you lied to yourself. Clarity. All to us the same thing. So until 49 gates, each shar is a step or level by itself. So a person goes gate after gate, step after step, up. And of course there are different gates, there are different heights between one gate. One is like this, the other ones will be this much, and each one goes through it. By the way, there are also 50 ways to live your life, 50 ways to reach the Torah, right? So if you want to understand that, look at Pirkei Avot and what are the gates. Now, if you look at those gates that are mentioned in Pirkei Avot, in which the Torah is being acquired, you might understand all the gates that a person needs to go through his life to actually reach in order to reach the level of Kedusha. Because Torah could not be acquired without Kedusha, without internal holiness. So Shara Chamishim is what we call Shara Kolel, the gate that includes them all, that in a way we don't see any discrepancies in the 50th gate. Over there, everything is endless. It's like Ein Sof, endless. So there's no limitations, there's no separations, there's no difference. The Shara Chamishim is a place of unity, Makom Shel Achdut. In the 50th gate, it's a place where darkness shines like the light. Not like shines like diamonds, but it shines, even darkness shines. There's no difference between darkness and light, and we're talking about spiritual matter, not in terms of physicality. Even darkness is bright. And it's a place that you could really, from that place, when you reach this gate, only at that place you can actually give tochecha. You can rebuke people. You cannot rebuke people when you yourself are in the mud. Don't tell other people that they are dirty when you are in the mud yourself. Dirty! Before you tell somebody something, make sure that you're entitled to say that you actually work yourself and you don't have that problem. Otherwise, you're a hypocrite. But when you enter the Shara Chamishim Avner, you hear me? I mean, because I know if you can do two things at one time. So only when you enter the Shara Chamishim, when everything is clear, when basically the level of enlightenment, that you understand everything, only then you can give tochecha. Now, when Moshe Rabbeinu speaks to them before, he said, by the way, guys, you mind if I'll be just a drop late? Do you mind? You don't mind? When Moshe Rabbeinu speaks to them before his death, he speaks from, as we say, from the Shara Chamishim, from the 50th gate. And that's the level in which he reached. And that's why it says, Ele hadvarim asher diber Moshe el kol Israel, to all the Jews. In Gematria, Kol is also 50. So only when he was able to do so, he was talking to Am Israel from the 50th gate. And more than that, the word Ele is the same letters of Leah, or matriarch, Leah, which is corresponding with the Sphera of Bina as well. So, and that's of course Sha'ar Bina, the Bina is the Sha'ar HaMishim. The 50th gate is also parallel to the concept of Tshuva Me'ahava. When a person makes Teshuvah because of love to Ribono Shel Olam, what we call Tshuva Ila'ah, the most superior Teshuvah, all the sins of the person become zchuyot, becomes a mitzvot for him. When he does it out of love, when he does it out of fear, is also good, but not as good. When you reach that level of tshuva ila'ah, tshuva that is done mi'ahava, that becomes zchuyot. Therefore, from that place of the 50th gate, Moshe can speak to the people and actually tell them all the things that they do wrong. And by doing so, what Moshe Rabbeinu is doing, which is fantastic, is making those averot that they did into zchuyot. Because that's only can come from the unity, from the Sha'ar Echad, from the one gate, which is love. So that's why he's talking to them like this. Since the dibur that he's talking comes from Sha'ar HaMishim, and that includes everybody, Moshe Rabbeinu can speak on to the general people as one body itself. Because he unifies them by his speech. He unifies them all. He does something amazing. He doesn't say, you did this Shevet did that Shevet did this. He doesn't make a cheshbon with the people. He does something, and if I may say that, and I hope I don't get punished with that in Olam Haba, he does something that even Yaakov Avinu was not able to do. He speaks to the people as one. He doesn't do, Yosef, you're my beloved one, this one, you're this one. He doesn't do that. He said, you're all one thing. Now you're one thing, I'm talking to you as one, because I reached that gate, and one is love, the same gematria, the same numerical value. One, ahava, one is 13. That's what he does. That's why he can give him tochecha. Now, not only that, Moshe brings them to that level in which they were in Har Sinai, because in Mount Sinai, they were together, they were one. They were one, and then what happened when they were one? The tum'ah, the impurity of the snake, had been dissolved. So unity of Am Yisrael brings Kedusha, and by itself, the tum'ah, the impurity goes away. He was able to do so because he understood that in order to enter the land, you need to be holy, you need to be unified. Being holy means unified, being unified means holy. Now, I don't care how long your beard is, I don't care how long your peot are, I don't care from which animal they made your strimal. If you claim to be holy, you cannot be one who deceiving Jew against Jew. You should find the goodness in every single Jew out there. That's what it means being holy. And if not, you're fake. I don't have a problem saying that. I want to see somebody who disagrees with me on that. That's what it means. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu does. He brings us to this level, and by doing so, he himself enters them, pushes them into the 50th gate. And then they reach that level of Vayichan Sham Israel, Vayichan Sham Israel, and Am Israel settled down there as one body. There was not Am Israel. Am Israel is a group of people. Israel is one entity. So in the concept of Israel, there's no room for Sfaradim, Ashkenazim, secular, shmecular, nothing. There's the concept of Israel as one man, one heart. That's why people don't have two hearts. They have one heart. So the rhythm would be equal inside of you. And Am Yisrael was there in a great state of love to one another. Unity, complete unity in Mount Sinai. The same thing here. And we could see so when Moshe Rabbeinu died, the pain in which Am Yisrael felt together. So the same thing here, in the last moments of Moshe Rabbeinu was able to reveal his greatest love for Am Yisrael. He was able to unify Am Yisrael around him. He became the core in which Am Yisrael goes on, and everybody would agree. That's why I said to you yesterday. For me, 2 days ago, for me, the chief rabbi, I have one chief rabbi. I have only one rabbi, Moshe Rabbeinu. And if you could see today, they are fighting. This one is a chief rabbi, the other one chief rabbi. Even in Israel, why in the world we need two chief rabbis? Right? Why we need chief rabbi Ashkenazi? Now they're going to make chief rabbi Ethiopian. Now they're going to make chief rabbi for, I don't know, zombies. מי צריך את זה? Moshe Rabbeinu, the whole Am Yisrael he is the core in which Am Yisrael is condensing around. So now, if you look at this way, and that's over there when it says the concept of Torah Moshe came about, the Torah of Moshe. Now it becomes Torah Moshe. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave up the thing to say Torah Elokim. He calls it Torah Moshe because he was able to do what the Torah wants you to do. Now I'm going to tell you something, guys. I don't know. Don't think I'm trying to bust your chops or something. But if you're learning Torah and you are deceiving and you breaking one man against the other, I don't know if you're really learning Torah. I don't know what in the world you're doing because it's impossible. A person that truly learns Torah understands that we're all in this together. Understand the importance of Am Yisrael B'yachad. It can't be a person that learns Torah and likes to separate Jews. It's impossible. And that, if you want a rayah, that's what it says over there. So not only the Moshe Rabbeinu does not finalize settle down, feud with them, not only that, but he shows us his greatness that even right before his death, the well-being of Am Yisrael stands in front of him and is more important than his last minutes, and even in the last minutes on earth, he's willing to do something for Am Yisrael. He doesn't think about himself. That's what I call a leader. That is a leader. That's my leader. So in regards to Eretz Yisrael, it says, "Re natati lifnachem et haaretz," I give you the land. Bo urshu et haaretz, and inherit the land. Asher nishba Hashem leavotechem, which God has sworn to your forefathers, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, to give them and to the generations after them, to the offspring after them. Again, only to the offsprings of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, not Avraham, Ishmael, and whatever it is. But as we always say, the Torah is Torat Chaim, and is very applicable to our days as well, and let's see what it really means to us this way. And we really need to see reality in a different perspective, in a much higher and different perspective altogether. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, I open to you a gate, in order for you to see Eretz Yisrael. I'm showing you one thing, he says. I'm showing you that you are the heroes. And the enemies that sit here in the land are weak. You are the heroes and they are weak. Without any power, nothing. They don't have any power. Remember, the enemies of the Jewish people, even today, have no power. Am Yisrael always lived with so many enemies around them. Always. We are surrounded by a world of billions that nobody loves us. Don't fool yourself. Nobody loves the Jews. And yet, we're still here. Maybe it's not so pleasant to hear that, but that's what it is. So our Chachamim tells us that the reason for that, the root of that, is not our enemies. The root for that, and the problem with that, is us. We are the problem. We are the reason why the world hates us. You want to know why? I'll tell you why. Since nobody answers, I'll tell you why. The reason is because we really hate ourselves. We really hate ourselves. And we need to understand this situation. We need to inherit the land, and we need to know exactly what do we need the land for. What are we going to do? To grow cannabis in the land? What are we there for? What are we looking for here? If you want be more beautiful lands, they are. If you want lands with oil, they are. What exactly are you looking to achieve in that land? Why are we coming there?
To be holy.
And we have to have a lot of holes, not holy.
No.
Now later. Now we have only one goal, and the goal is come and inherit. That's a rhetorical question. This is not open for discussion now. Okay? So now it says come and inherit the land. Come and inherit the land of which God has sworn to your forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, to give to them, ulezar'am achareim. That is a godly commandment. That's a divine commandment. There is no other purpose. God had told you, and it says, Shvu, settle down the land, Reduba, and that's what it says. You need to go inside. Why? Because God said that. That's it. And when you're in the land, you're going to do other things as well. But that's the only reason why we should go there. And you think about it next time when you tell me that you don't want to move to Israel. Basically, you got to be very careful. If you're saying that you don't want to go to Israel because of this, because of that, I don't know, their schools are bad, the roads are bad, the drivers are horrific, the girls are beautiful, I don't know, for whatever reason you don't want to move to Israel, I'm going to tell you, remember God's commandment, which He said to us again, Bo u'shu et haaretz, come and inherit the land in which I swore to your forefathers. If you're telling me that you're not in Israel, you don't want to go to Israel because you care about the people here, and you're trying to do kiruv chokim, to bring people closer to the Torah, to bring people closer to Hashem, you are taking the midah, the quality of Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe Rabbeinu will help you. He will be melitz yosher on you because you say, I want to go to Israel, but I have a job here to do. I have to take care of my people. So when you say and you act that, a bit of Moshe Rabbeinu comes into you. But when you're going there and you say, I don't want to go because of this, I don't want to go because of that, you are saying, I don't want to go, I don't care what God told me to do. You think about it very carefully. If you want to go visit the Grand Canyon, go visit the Grand Canyon, but go back to Israel. Before you go see the Grand Canyon, have you seen the Negev? Before you seen the Grand Teton, you went to Har Meron, you went to Hermon. Before you went to California, did you go to Natanya? That's Israel, man, it's your homeland. But what happened? Everybody complains, we don't like ourselves. If we're going to look around, why did they build the state of Israel? Huh? Why? To be such a small little country? What do we say? Right? What people say? Oh, we don't want to be a third world country. So what we should do? We should build roads. Let's make bridges. Let's make peace with the people. Let's be a part of the world nations. We want to be just like everybody else. The psychology is that we should be like the rest of the nations. We should take all the cultures of the world, all right, even if it's the most repulsive culture out there, and we're going to adopt it. We're going to adopt the most defective cultures in the world, and we call it our own. And Israel and Israelis became like parrots. Whatever any moron does in San Francisco becomes law in Israel. The Torah comes and tells us something. You need to come to inherit the land in which Hashem swore to your forefathers. That has to come from the initiative of your forefathers and the merit of your forefathers. And then you need to do whatever the nations, whatever your forefathers did, you need to do. When you do that, it says, Namogu kol yoshvei haaretz mipnechem. That's why it says in Yeshua, all the nations of the land will run away from you. Well, Namogu means they've evaporated. Then all those big heroes, right? Abbas, Mabas, Hamas, Hezbollah, Khomeini, Mumeni. All those big heroes all of a sudden becomes like little mosquitoes that have no power and they have no authority. Only then you can overcome them. The way for the Jews to overcome their enemies is to do what God did, to follow the footsteps of their forefathers, not to adopt some kind of like crazy, leftist revolution that they come up with, I don't know where, in some university in Berkeley. That's not going to happen. And then when it's going to happen, there's going to be peace without any. There's not going to be war, and not going to be any. Nobody's going to bother you. Am Yisrael needs to deal with the purpose, with the tachlit, with the purpose of the world. We don't have time to deal with wars with the nations, and all the wars that we had were to enter the land, to purify the land from the evilness that was rooted into the land, and was rooted to the land with all the people who invaded the land. I told you this, and I told you this before 1,000,000 times. The Jews, remember this. Remember this. If somebody ever dares to tell you that, tell them the Jews are the indigenous people of the land of Israel. The land of Israel is named after the Jews. If you, for example, would agree that any indigenous group in the world allows to have its own land, there isn't another indigenous group of people that the land is being called after them. We are the indigenous people of the land, and everybody else, including the damn Palestinians who sit in the land, are conquerors. They're invaders, and they pollute the land with the filth. I don't have a problem to say that. If you don't like it, drink cold water. But that's the truth. Hello, look who's here. We're almost done, guys, almost done. And there is a law in the spiritual aspect. There is a law that we say, Hakatan mitbatel bifnei hagadol. The minor is being dismissed by the major, by the greater one. And everything that we see that the Goyim have risen and left their heads is not because they became so powerful, it's because we lower our heads. We put ourselves down. We don't understand and recognize the level and the importance of this chosen people. What does it mean to be a Jew? On the contrary, we says maybe we should change parts. Why do we need to be the chosen people? We have only problems for that. Why should we discriminate? Right? You should be the chosen people. We'll be like everybody else, right? And therefore, and that means that we don't appreciate ourselves at all, not enough, at all. We don't appreciate what we are. How do we want that the foreigners will respect you, that nations will respect you, if you don't respect yourself? In order for have respect from others, you first of all need to respect yourselves. If all the nation despise you, it's because you despise yourself. And all this humiliation is because we humiliate ourselves. And the solution is that Am Yisrael is going to be respectful. They should not live with fear from the nations. And when Am Yisrael would recognize its true value, its true wisdom, is beauty, and all the other good things that the Jews in the world, and I don't want to go here how great the Jews are, only then the nations would respect them. When we going to start respecting ourselves? And this is not for us to become dictators and rulers of the world. On the contrary, it's for us to guide the people in the ways of Hashem. This is all for us to become vessels for the light, to share the light of Hashem in the world, to understand and to show the people what is love, what's the way of Torah. And the way of Torah is love. And I told you this before, if you're a Torah person, and you're learning Torah, and you cannot find that love for another Jew in your heart, there's something wrong with the way you learn Torah. And again, this parasha, we're almost done. This parasha really is coming, mamash, right before Tisha B'Av. And in Tisha B'Av, both Bet HaMikdash were destroyed twice. And the last time, it was because of self-hatred. We really hated one another. And we are being called in the holy books as the generation, Dora Geulah, the generation of redemption. But we are also the same generation of the Khurban, of the destruction. It's been almost 2,000 years, and we still suffer the results of that hatred between one brother to another, of that destruction. And it was so devastating that we reach a state that many of us don't even understand what is that we lost and what is it that we're missing. They don't connect to it, and they say, Yerushalayim, give it back. They don't understand what it is. And not for nothing, this parasha reaches only here to really teach us what is really important, to point the beacon of light to our awareness, to all those places and all those places inside of us that need recovery. We need to work on this concept of love, and we need to rebuke those people without any shame from the place of love, as we said before. For those who say, listen, you have to bring love for the people. You have to stop talking bad about the people. And this awareness is going to cause us also to do cheshbon nefesh ishi, a personal inventory of what we do and what we write. And if I'm doing this and I'm not doing that, and then we can do a general all together as a people to really awaken inside of it. That cheshbon nefesh, it comes right now, right before Elul, to really be awakened, to awaken the power of love inside of us, to love one another, to love your fellow Jew, to appreciate, not only to love, to appreciate, because you cannot love someone if you don't appreciate it. And the reason why we don't love one another is because we don't appreciate who we are and what we're about. We need to understand what is the true meaning of sitting down in Eretz Israel. That's why we need to appreciate the land. We need to appreciate those who sit in the land. And that's why I encourage the guys in Yeshiva, when they have the minyan, to make a special Mishnah Berach. Everybody makes a Mishnah Berach for the soldiers, which is very important. But you need to add something else. You need to also add Mishnah Berach Avotenu in that, Et Achenu Toshvei Artzenu Akdosha, our brothers and sisters, residents of our holy land. Because those people who need a bracha also, if I'm not going to be mevarech them, I'm not going to be able to connect for them. Ve'et achenu bnei Yisrael ha'omdim al mishmar arzenu, these are the soldiers. We need to change that. We are sitting in Chutz La'aretz, we can change that. So Rabotai, from this place of love, and we have now Shabbat, I think we should look into, coming into and reflect on Sunday, which is going to be Tisha B'Av, and hopefully, we don't have to. Mashiach can come on Sunday. Amen. And then we can all go to Eretz Israel together. Amen. And that will be a wonderful thing. And I really wish on all of Israel that we should love one another, appreciate one another, appreciate Ribbono Shalom, what He does for us, and with that all, to appreciate the Torah. Shabbat Shalom. And easy fast.